There's a fighter came out today, and he was talking about the merger between the UFC and the WWE, and the fighter said this could be really great things. The WWE is very big and successful, and the UFC is very big and successful. And if they team up and they work together, maybe they both can become more big and more successful. A fighter said those words today. But 500 other fighters thought them. And sometimes you gotta understand you live in Dummyville, population 1, mayor you. Sometimes you've got to. The arguments as to why, because you gotta understand, right? If we're doing a negotiation, I must respect you. I got the money. I got the checkbook. I got the money. I need a guy. I need a guy to do the very job that I'm trying to hire you for. I'm going to write a check to somebody. You want me to write a bigger check to you? Okay, great. But the first thing, I've got to respect you. I have to. If I respect you, that and that alone, I might make a less responsible business decision. I might. I know that's on me. I got to go figure it out. I got to go make this up. Here's the deal I made with him. I'm honored here, but take it because I respect that guy. And when you come in and you say things like the WWE is big and successful, the UFC is big and successful, and if they work together, hopefully they can become bigger and more successful. When you say things like that, you now don't have the respect of anybody. A fighter will walk into a room and he will tell you a number. He's just pulling it out of things. He's making numbers up. Every now and then, a guy got a number from somebody else, and then he can just bring it to you and go, well, it's got to be more than that, or I'll just take this from that. I mean, every now and then, right, even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes. Fighter usually will just make up a number. Then if he doesn't get the number, he'll justify the number by telling you resumes. He'll start telling you what he did in his last fight, what he did in the fight before that, what he did in the fight before that, if that, in fact, serves him. How he did in Abu Dhabi, how he did in Little League, if he thinks that that's going to add to it. He'll start telling you that have nothing, and I do mean nothing to do with revenue. Nothing. But he'll start doing that. You want to know an argument that was made? Strikeforce was the organization. Kim Couture, manager at the time. Kimmy went on, had a good fighting career. She was managing at the time. And she was managing somebody named Gina Carano. And Kimmy Couture walked into an arena with Gina Carano and then saw 10 other fighters come through that same curtain to that same arena, and it wasn't even close. The fans were cheering and screaming and happy to see Gina fivefold over anybody else they walked out. So Kimmy went and found out what those other people were getting paid and used the roar of the crowd against the promoter to add some commas and zeros to Gina's paycheck. And guess what? It worked. And it should have. That makes perfect sense. I share that with you because the formula sometimes is right in front of you. And it's so simple and it's so easy. You just want to think of that. If you want to know the ultimate focus group, get some guy and walk them out. At the press conference, you're paying attention. Who got the cheers when they came through? Who got the most questions asked? At the weigh-in, you're doing the same thing. On fight night, you're doing the same thing. That will affect the guy's bonus. It will affect where you put him on the next card, and it will affect what you want to pay him. Kimmy Couture, who was brand new to the sport, and as simple as her formula might have been, it worked. Scott Coker was the promoter. He happened to be there. He heard those cheers. He acknowledged that Gina's were louder, that she was worth more than he knew. He gave her a new contract. Very basic, but it makes perfect sense. Now, they're coming out, they're talking about, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this merger with the WWE and the UFC? And Dana spoke a little bit about that. Stephen Morocco is calling me. Stephen, I will call you back. How are they going to do that, right? And Dana just said, look, it's not about sharing talent. It's about sharing resources. And Dana real lightly set down how powerful of media juggernauts these two companies are. TikTok numbers, Twitter numbers, Instagram numbers, right? The new world that we live in. didn't quite lay out the plan of how they would help and support each other, but he did at least let us know it wasn't really going to be a talent swap. And that's very good news. I mean, I don't know that any of us should have reasonably thought that it was going to be. You have a guy within Brock Lesnar, and the WWE now has another guy, Gable Steveson, that any reasonable person will tell you could become the UFC heavyweight champion, and any reasonable person could tell you will become the WWE heavyweight champion. They're grooming him for this. He's the youngest Olympic champion in history. The company signed him at 20 years old. 21, 22 right now. I'm just sharing for you. There could be some opportunity to actually have a guy that's a shoot champion and the worked champion, but I don't know that they're going in that direction. I think that was very helpful that Dana said, man, that's not really what we do. Not to mention, you could already look at this, right? Hollywood is so right? WME and whatnot, the greatest talent scouts in all of Hollywood owned the UFC, and sure, actors would come to the events, but they didn't get in the cage. Stick a camera on them, they get a quick cameo. Famous actors were getting that for 20 years before the buy. Like, nothing has changed. I don't know why we all of a sudden think the UFC guys are going to be going out there and jumping around. It was just kind of a weird concept. It really was. It was weird that people would have thought that would have been the move. But it was also very telling when this fighter, who happened to say what 500 other fighters thought, both companies do well, and working together, maybe they can even do weller. Like, sometimes you can just shut up. Just shut up. We'll call you 3 times a year. We'll send you the plane ticket. We'll let you know what room to stay in. We'll even have a van there. It's a big thing. Windows on it. They can tie the door open. Just sit in it. When we come, just sit in that. Don't do any more thinking. And for God's sake, don't do any more talking. Right? I mean, sometimes you have to get to that point. And I do think as far as looking at how these two are going to work together, I think that you've got a colossal misunderstanding of think about audience or bringing over something interesting, right? I mean, you have people that do what they do, and you have other people that do what they do, and no expert is going to have them cross the lines. I was just looking for somebody famous to go in there. We call Taylor Swift every night. We call Kim Kardashian every night. There's your main event. Kardashian versus Swift. Oh, Chael's a genius. Give me $10 billion. I mean, you see, sometimes a little less talking, and all the time, a little less thinking.